Welcome to M&G Agency Life, your regular dose of creativity, insights, and all things Mearns & Gill.
Join us on this whirlwind journey through the world of marketing, design, and digital.
We'll also talk brand, events, media, and lots more.
Like what happens behind the scenes?
Yeah, and the latest industry trends, we've got you covered.
So get ready to dive into the world of agency.
Right, shall we do this?
Oh, heck yes. Hello and welcome to episode 10 of M&G Agency Life. This episode we're going to be focusing on media solutions.
I can't believe we're on episode 10
I know.
already.
Time flies.
Where's the time gone? So last week we covered events. Aimee, we had you and your crew.
Yep.
It got a little bit wild at times.
It's very fun.
And today I feel it's going to be me and my crew in a way. So media solutions here at Mearns & Gill. Let's get into it.
I'm excited. I guess this is a good point to speak about you, Pete, and your role here at Mearns & Gill. What have you been up to since you started?
So, almost 6 months into my role now. Can't believe it. Where has the time gone? So I guess I've been focused on developing our media solutions service offering here at Mearns & Gill. A lot of these services we were already offering stuff like stream TV, film, media training. And it was never really badged under one service offering. So we now have media solutions here at Mearns & Gill, and it covers various services such as stream TV, video production, media training, and podcasting, obviously, because this is
we're here.
M&G Agency Life podcast. We're right here. So we have our main podcast room right down here, and next door we have our Mearns & Gill Media Studio where the magic happens.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's not just me. We work with quite a big team in this department, and it's going to be a busy podcast. So before we get into each of these services, let's meet the big crew of media solutions. So we've got quite a few guests on the podcast today. We are joined by Isla, no stranger to the podcast.
No.
You've been on a couple before. Hello, Isla.
I have. Hello. Thanks for having me back.
Thank you for coming back. And we also have Roy. Roy, hello.
Hello, Pete. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Roy, you're a cameraman. We're going to come back to you in a moment. But fun fact, Roy and Isla are father and daughter.
Yes, we are. Yeah. In fact, this is one of the few occasions that I'm actually referred to by my own name. I'm usually referred to as Isla's dad.
Yeah.
Well, when I first started here, Roy, we had an email with the three of us on it, and you kept calling me darling. And then I realised it was Isla because she's your daughter. And I got very excited.
No, I was also calling you darling.
Oh, well, that's how we get on so well in this department.
Indeed, yes.
And we're also joined today by Andrew. Andrew, welcome to the podcast room.
Hi, Pete. How you doing?
You know this podcast room very well because you built it. You made it. It's your baby.
Yes, I was indeed.
Thank you very much for creating such a great space.
You're welcome.
We've had a lot of great compliments about this room, and there's only one small issue that we're still working on with the boss.
Yeah.
A mini bar.
Got to happen, hasn't it? It's got to happen.
I think it does have to happen.
Okay, let's get to know our guests a little bit better. Roy, start with you. Tell us a little bit about your background and what inspired you to become a cameraman.
Well, I really wanted to be a lead guitarist in a rock and roll band.
Oh, I can see it.
Yeah, thank you.
You're a big Eric Clapton fan, so I'm sure.
I am.
Sure that could have happened.
Yeah, and it's never too late.
No?
That's what I say, yes. I'm just waiting on the call from Mr. Clapton to join him. It will happen. It will. But failing that, oh my goodness, how did I get into this? I'm one of the very, very lucky people who managed to convert a hobby into a career. I trained as an architect, but I never, ever had a camera out of my hands. A stills camera to begin with, and then latterly a video camera. And I just learnt by doing. It's as far back as 1994, I think, 30 years ago, Aberdeen City Council was holding a year-long celebration of the bicentenary of the building of Union Street.
Oh, wow.
And I wanted to make a video of the building of Union Street because at that time I knew when it was being built, it was the largest construction project in Europe and it nearly bankrupted the city. So it was a big story. It was a big deal. So I felt I can possibly make a little video on the building of Union Street.
Okay.
So I got Stuart Milne, as it then was, to sponsor it. It was made, and you got about a couple of thousand VHS copies. VHS, for our younger listeners, was a medium for transferring video and audio.
Thank you for clearing that up.
Yeah, thought I'd best. Grampian Television, as it then was, for our younger viewers and listeners, again, that was the before STV.
Yeah.
So Grampian Television saw it, asked if they could broadcast it. And I was lucky enough, it got the highest viewing figures for any programme broadcast that year at its Thursday evening 7:30 slot.
Wow.
So from then on, I was just making corporate videos and television programmes and no longer working as an architect.
Wow.
So it was totally by chance, none of it really by any plan at all.
And Roy, we know you've been involved in live TV. Tell us about that. What was that like?
I loved it. I love live television, and I'm sure we'll go on to speak about that in more detail with what we've got next door in the studio. But one of the contracts I had for Grampian Television was live broadcast of the early morning GMTV news bulletins. So that meant getting up at 3 a.m, getting into the studio, working with reporters, journalists and engineers, interviewing usually politicians that would come into the studio, desperate to have their message heard by the millions. So I would film that, I would edit it, and then I would carry out the live transmission of the GMTV news bulletin, cutting into the London broadcast and then coming back to them 3-4 minutes later. And I loved it. Live television is great. Very long days, yes.
But still some family time.
Well, my daughter is sitting next to me. So
I thought you were about to ding you the question. I'm like, Dad.
Yeah. Always time for family time, particularly Isla. My firstborn.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Roy. That was so interesting. Next, Andrew, tell us about your background and what inspired you to work in your line of work.
Yeah, so I've had a bit of a strange introduction into audiovisual, what I do now. I actually started in hospitality many, many years ago when I was 16 all the way up. Always done sort of the conference side of the hospitality side of it, from being your simple porter on the floor all the way up to being one of the managers. And then an opportunity came along from one of the production companies that came into the hotel I worked in and offered me a job there, just following my passions on from working with computers and always interested in what the guys were doing when they came in, be it from the setups, from the screens, projectors. Like Roy, working with VHS or 35mm slide projectors, overhead projectors, all the way up to the sort of newer technology that was coming in at the time, what was the data projectors. So really enjoyed that. Opportunity came along and thought, fantastic, let's grab it with both hands and move on. And I started with one of the local companies in Aberdeen, being A-Line Audiovisual, which was, it was good fun. And it's, and how it's progressed through my life, from being an employee at A-Line through into owning it latterly, and now working with Roy here at Stream Television and also the rest of the team here at M&G Gill as well.
Yeah, I should have actually said, so Roy and Andrew, just to put this into context, you are our studio partners down here in the Media Studio, so we work very closely with both of you. And I was just listening to what you've both said about VHS tape, and Andrew, when you just first got started out, you must both have seen so many changes in tech over the years.
Just a few. I'd say it touched on the good old 35mm slide projectors and just the overhead projectors, all the way up to the latest technologies now, from, even computers that run a lot faster now, coming away from DVD. But just, you've got everything now with touchscreens, LED video wall, obviously the big thing just now as well. Latest lighting. It's just, it's come on leaps and bounds in the last 10, 20 years. Yeah. It's been quite phenomenal, to be honest.
Andrew, I think you always downplay yourself because you make a lot of the amazing things happen, whether it's at events or in the studio. The stuff you do behind the scenes really makes stuff, really pulls together some amazing experiences for people.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just one person, it is a team. Without the backing of likes of Roy or working with other people I work with as well. Without that team, you cannot pull an event together yourself. You have to work with a team. Working with Isla from, the event side of it, from the initial concepts with the client all the way through to the execution of the event as well. Working with likes of Roy, it is a team effort and it is a lot of hard work involved in it.
Okay, great. So tell us now about how you came up with the concept of the studio.
I'll butt in here first of all and quickly say where it came from. Like, I guess if you've been listening to our podcast, you'll know we've got a huge event side of our business. And in 2020, that fateful year, we had some quick decisions to make about events. I'd say we run anything up to about 50 events in a year, maybe more, maybe less sometimes. And all of a sudden, none of them couldn't take place. And when you're in a company that's around 50% events, that's a problem. So very quickly, my dad and Andrew were on the scene with us thinking, right, how can we keep some of these events going in a different way? Ultimately, it was about bringing people together, keeping connected, sharing learnings, doing everything we had been doing with events, but in this new online forum type thing. So that's when my dad and Andrew came and got involved and started to work on the grassroots of what the studio were, I guess. Is that?
Yeah, that's.
Can we call it the A-team in?
That's very fair. That's how the studio was born. I mean, it goes back to the days of COVID, when face-to-face meetings, all events were cancelled. So as you say, Isla, it was a case of, well, how the heck can we salvage some of these to keep clients happy?
All of them.
Yeah, all of them.
Salvaged them all.
Yeah, well, we salvaged them all.
And I love these stories because we were really, I wasn't here back then, but it sounds like it was really innovative. Everyone was thinking outside the box. We had these events, we still had to do them. And what a great approach. And then out of that, Stream TV. So Isla, you've been involved in a lot of the projects down here in the media studio. So I guess from a comms point of view, what are the benefits of the studio? What would you say they're bringing to clients with regards to their marketing and their comms?
We think, and our clients think, that the studio is almost like an extra tool in the belt of anyone working in comms. It really helps to bring your plan to life. So I think it's an exciting tool to have. It's for video content. It's for live streaming. It's podcasts like we're doing here, video podcasts. There's almost no end to the uses. I guess some of the things that we've been running 4 years now, that sounds gross, but across the past 4 years, some of the things we've done here, in the early days, it was like online conferences, like 5 sessions in a row across 5 days. We have done media training, lots of media training here. I think it's one of the only places in Aberdeen that's got down the line interviews, but we'll talk about that later.
Yep.
We've done brand relaunches in here. We've done finalist videos for award ceremonies. Oh God, a lot of like town hall type meetings and things. Like if you have to communicate to an audience, whichever way that is, you can do it from here. And I guess I'm thinking of one of the ones that we did for one of the home builders recently. They traditionally did 4 meetings, supply chain meetings. Each meeting would have had about 150, 200 at it across Scotland. And instead, they saved money and were better on the environment. They did a live stream here. They got their key directors in. They answered questions. I think in total they had about 300 people on the call. So it's a great space. It's a great way of communicating, whoever your audience is.
So let's dig into the services we offer a little bit more. So first of all, Stream TV. Isla, I know you've been involved in a lot of these projects. Do you want to talk us through what Stream TV is, how it works, and who might use it?
Yeah, do you know what? And I think, and I'll probably repeat myself on what I said earlier a little bit here, but the stream television aspect of the studio is all about, I guess, live and as live streaming of events or communication. So it's an amazing tool. Like we've already been said, it's like a live television studio, incredible kit. It has to be seen to be believed. And it's there to help you get your message to people. So again, either that's a live broadcast, it's an as live, it can be with an edit, all different stuff. But it's if you have a purpose, there's a TV studio here that you can use to get your message to people.
And I know we've used it for a variety of different kind of live streams. So we've done town halls, AGMs, things like that, where I guess it's really important for companies that maybe want to save on their carbon footprint and, kind of broadcast it to everyone can watch these things at their desk, or it could be a brand launch or a product launch.
Absolutely, yeah, we've done really great. The great thing about doing a brand launch in the studio is that you completely control the narrative, so you can invite as many people to come along as you like. You can talk them through the reason for the change or whatever you're doing, and you bring people on the journey with you. We talk about journey every podcast, don't we? But you can sit there, you can talk them about the reason for the brand, about the story behind it, about what this means for the company. And most importantly, I guess you can answer any questions there and then, so that hopefully there's no misunderstandings and you go forward positively. And you can do that with any key message that you've got to get across to a lot of people.
And who gets to do the countdown before we go live? Because that's Andrew, an important bit, right?
Love it.
That's it. Andrew, go and do it now.
3, 2, 1.
There he is.
And then you point.
Yeah.
Love it.
Good.
And then everyone feels physically sick. No, it's not. It's super exciting. Do you know what I love most about when you do that? Is clients love it too.
Yeah.
And once you've all done it, you can see that the clients have got the rush. Like, I would honestly say to anyone that hasn't been in the studio yet, come in and just see it for yourself. We've yet to have a client that hasn't come in and thought, oh, I could use it for this, or I could use it for this, or what about this?
Yeah.
Oh, now I've got my thinking cap on. Like, everyone who comes in says that.
And some great feedback that I've just heard a number of clients talk about whenever they come in to do something, whether it's filmed as live or an actual live piece. They all feel very relaxed after Roy and Andrew have put them at ease. Do you put something in their coffee?
Quite often, yes. Yes, or mine. Yeah, I find it helps.
So that is Stream TV. That's one of the services we offer. Moving on then into video production, so we can create videos, whether they're explainer videos, pieces to camera. Roy, this is probably your bag. Is there anything, what do you love most about just film in general?
My goodness, I love all of it, Pete. I really enjoy what I do. As I think I said before, I'm very, very lucky in that I managed to make my living out of my hobby. I enjoy making corporate videos. I enjoy working for lots of charities. So you meet lots of lovely, lovely people who deserve to be heard and have their charity helped in some way.
Yeah.
It's just, I'm very, very lucky in doing what I do.
If you have a job that you love, you never have to work a day in your life, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
So I guess to any of you, what do you think makes for a good video? What's important?
A happy client.
A happy client, yes.
That's about the bottom line.
Do you know what I think you're really good at, though, Dad? And I think this is important in video production, is you know that time is finite and you more often than not don't get a second chance at going back. So I think you're really good at firmly but fairly managing people on the day, like making sure you get exactly what it is that you need to get to do the best job for the client.
Well, that comes back to my training. And when I first began making videos, I moved into Grampian Television, and I was lucky enough to work with some very, very talented people: cameramen, audio engineers, lighting engineers, editors, transmission controllers, and I learned everything from them in the early days. And a cameraman once told me, said, never start recording until you're absolutely sure of the shot that you're going to get. And if you've got a pan, start with something that you're going to be happy with and end with something you're going to be happy with. And only then do you press record on the camera. It's easier not to do that now that everything is digital, because the guys that I used to speak to, they were brought up on film. And that was an expensive way to produce something. And now in digital, it's, well, it is. It's much, much easier. But the same applies, that plan your shots, know what you're going to get, know what you're going to need, and get the shots and nothing more. Don't overshoot, because all you're going to do is give the editor a headache.
Yeah.
And when you're also the editor, you're just giving yourself a headache.
Well, that's true. Well, I mean, because I shoot edit, and as quite a number of my colleagues also do, we know what we're going to need for that particular production for that particular video. So we make sure we get it. And it's a case of it has to be carefully planned, not just going out there and shooting everything that moves.
Yeah, and I guess just on that piece, so there is the technical side, but there is also that whole piece around messaging, making sure that they get their message across, they're consistent, they have a strong call to action, and also that the video's engaging and people want to watch it.
Yeah, absolutely essential, particularly more so in the today's social media days when you've much more limited time to keep a viewer's attention before they move on to watching a cat play a piano.
And who doesn't love that?
So, Roy, what is your most memorable shoot?
Oh my goodness, that's really a difficult question to answer. I'm so lucky.
Yeah.
I have enjoyed pretty much all the shoots I've ever been on. I suppose the good fun stuff has been, I made quite a few videos for the Balmoral estate in years gone by, and that meant getting up into the hills and getting access to parts of the estate in those days that the general public were not allowed to get into. And that was fun. I enjoyed that. Out in the fresh air, up in the hills.
Boots on.
And doing something that was quite unique.
Yeah.
I've only been on a couple of shoots with you, Roy, but I already have a most memorable one. The time we were up Clackaghnaben and we encountered 2 snakes. We saw actual adders and you had to climb over a tree as well.
I did, yes.
Goodness.
Yes.
Have you blocked that out of your mind already?
And you being far younger and fitter than I, you went up to the top of Clackaghnaben, but I prefer to think of it as being me being left to look after the equipment at base camp.
And you assured me it was just part of my training.
It was part of your training, young Pete. Yeah.
So there we go. Lots of fun times, and that is video production.
So the next service we offer is podcasting, obviously, because we're here right now. We have had an episode on this before, so we don't need to go into too much detail about it. But Pete, do we have any other stats or any new updates on our podcast?
Yeah, so we have obviously covered podcasting. It's something I'm very passionate about. We have already covered this in an early episode, but stats on this podcast, it's looking pretty good. Yes. We're being listened to in 16 countries. We've got Australia in there, Nigeria, Cyprus, Taiwan, France, United Arab Emirates, the States, India, and cities. 89, currently 89 different cities.
Wow.
So thank you very much to everyone who has listened to M&G Agency Life. And, this is the penultimate episode. Yeah. We're going to do a Q&A next week. But there's already some whispers about a series 2. Yeah.
Goodness.
So that will be in the plans. But yeah, I've got to say I've enjoyed working on this as our own agency podcast. It's been great fun, and it's also been a great way for everyone to get to know the team here at Mearns and Gill.
Yeah,
and I think it's
replaced.
It's been good for the whole team to learn about podcasts and things as well. I think we've all got a really good behind the scenes knowledge of it now.
But you already have a great knowledge of podcasting, Isla, because you have your own.
I set myself up there with that comment.
Walked into that. You have your own podcast.
I do have my own podcast, but the thing is, I haven't done anything with it for about 6 months or so, and I need to get back up and running again with it because I love doing it.
Me, Myself, and Isla. What a great title. I love it.
I know, for all the De La Soul lovers out there.
So, shall we move on to media training? So, media training is another service that we offer down here in the studio, and I think it's one that everyone has been involved in. Media training, I guess, it will arm you with confidence to face the media. It will help with presentation skills, and it could be it's for anyone who may face the media or may have to engage in public speaking. Yeah. So, who wants to take this? Roy, Andrew, do you want to talk us through typically what happens from your side during media training?
Well, I'd like to try to get across the importance of media training. And not so many years ago, you might have got about 10 minutes of news on the television and radio at a lunchtime. There might have been a little bit at tea time. And maybe half an hour at news at 10, and that was it. Now, news and broadcast news now is 24/7. It is relentless. And news is a very, very hungry animal, and it needs to be fed. It needs stories. So media training is a hugely important part of making sure that if you are called on to represent yourself or your company or your organization, that you make most use of it, that you benefit from it, and don't go along thinking that you can just wing it. And, it'll be fine. I speak to 500 people at a town hall. It is entirely different. You go into media training, once trained, with 2 or 3, usually at most, key messages that you want to get across, that you will get across, no matter what the questions are. And you can hear certainly politicians, and you know that they've been media trained to within an inch of their lives. Those that have been media trained, the good ones are those that get their messages across without it looking as if they've been media trained, that they appear completely natural and make most use of the media that they're speaking to, whether it be television or radio or print. It doesn't matter.
I was going to say, and like adding to that, Dad, it's in addition to the huge news cycle, it's like you can, if you go to events, you can be given an opportunity to speak to camera at any point at an event and find yourself on social media. Or, you know, your boss wants you to give a piece to camera and things. So it's like the media training is so multi-layered now, like it works for everything. Like you said, it's all just about making sure you make the best of an opportunity to get your company's point across.
Yeah, the big thing now is citizen journalism. I mean, anyone with a phone.
That's big words.
Indeed, anyone with a phone can now be a video journalist. Take a clip, an interview that you may not be expecting, and send it into the stations for it to be used. So you've got to be prepared for every eventuality. And that's what media training helps you do.
And everything we do in the studio here is completely bespoke. So we will obviously chat to a client, work out kind of what their requirement is, and we'll build a course specifically towards those needs. And typically we have some great journalists that we work with that will facilitate these courses. We'll do some classroom stuff in the morning, and then in the afternoon they get grilled on the camera.
I mean, and Andrew has set up the studio here for down the line interviews, and that's a hugely important part of media training. That someone in London or Houston or Perth, Australia can be interviewed by anyone in Aberdeen or London. And all that happens there, they are taken into a little room and they are sat in front of a camera, and they do not see the interviewer. They only hear the questions through an earpiece, and they have got to answer those questions straight to a camera.
I always think the fun thing about that is that when down the line training is happening, they all sit together in the same room and watch it happening and see how people are performing. But I think down the line is another example, Andrew, of how your fingerprints are everywhere in the studio. Like even on the days that you're not there for an event, it's still a huge important bit of setup that you've done in there for that thing, whether it's lighting, whether it's AV, whether it's kit. You're part of every event, whether you're there or not.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. As I say, working with Roy, we work as a team together to make sure everything's put together correctly for the client, using all the latest sort of technologies, making sure it's all the microphones, there's the cameras. If you're saying down the line, make sure the earpieces are working. It needs recorded occasionally as well, so when you're doing your media training, sometimes there is a piece of camera where there is a cameraman in the room just recording that information, that topic that needs to be discussed, then it's played back into the table where everyone's sitting to listen to what needs to be said, and it's critiqued. It's quite fun just to sit back and watch everyone else get grilled, but to be in that situation, it can be very, very nervous.
And I suppose that's the purpose of it, isn't it? Almost feeling the pressure and putting your morning's training into use so you can actually feel what it could feel like.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can see as they come through the door, they're not sure what's going to happen. Yeah. In the mornings, you said, Pete, they come in, have a bit of training in the morning, and then in the afternoon they're grilled, and you can see sometimes, it sounds horrible, the fear in their eyes. Yeah. But afterwards, everyone comes back and says, such a great...
Yeah.
Just it's a great feeling just to go through it, understand what's been done,
And leave feeling confident.
It's important that they leave confident in delivering these key messages to media.
Yeah.
As I say, whether it be a television camera or within a radio studio.
Yeah.
And that's what we like to see clients leave with, confidence.
Yeah. And that's when we know we've done the right thing, we've done our job. They come in with not all the best knowledge, but they leave super confident knowing that they will be able to handle themselves in these situations.
Yes. Absolutely.
Okay, so wrapping up this section, open up to everyone. Any tips without giving too much away?
Well, the important thing about being media trained is that you control the interview and the interviewer does not control it. So you answer the questions at your own pace, not at theirs. You'll often find that a reporter or an interviewer will interrupt you and ask another question. Don't let that happen. You will have your key messages along with your PR person. You will be primed to get your messages across and make sure that you do get your messages across in your own way and at your own pace.
That's a good point, Roy, because I think, you can actually pause and take your time to answer a question.
Absolutely. It's not a normal conversation. Well, a recorded interview is not a normal conversation. If it's live, then fair enough. That's different. You have to kind of think on your feet. But a recorded interview is not a normal conversation. It is just a series of opportunities for you to get your agenda across. And don't feel that you have to immediately answer the question as it's put to you. If you want to take a few seconds to think of your carefully crafted answer that you will have been working on with your PR person, hopefully the PR person from Mearns and Gill, before the interview, then take that time and in your own time, just deliver it.
Excellent. Some great tips there. Really interesting piece, and media training here at Mearns and Gill can really help people out a lot, especially, with building confidence like we've spoken about. So that concludes the services we have within Media Solutions. But now it's that time for my favourite part of the podcast. It's Case Study Corner.
Woohoo.
I'll never get bored of that. So this is the segment of the podcast where we like to take a case study, break it down, have a little chat about it, talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, hopefully no bad or ugly. No. Isla, what are you taking into Case Study Corner?
Well, first of all, I'm looking at Andrew cringing at the whole podcast experience, but he doesn't know how good he is. Andrew and I are going to talk about Trades Awards, the online awards ceremony that we ran in lockdown, which kind of was the start of the whole studio. Yeah. So do you want me to start, Andrew, and then you can start chipping in?
Yeah, go for it, Isla. You just talk a bit about the trades. And then
this is another time that we came to you with a problem and no idea how to fix it and want to have challenge.
It's never a problem, just a challenge.
We the Trades Awards is an awards ceremony for the construction industry that we have been running for 12 years now, and obviously in 2020 it couldn't take place, but we were adamant that it had to because people needed feel good and something to look forward to more than ever. I still remember it distinctly. And so traditionally as the in-person event, 400 people come together at Ardo House, 14 award categories. We celebrate everything from Apprentice of the Year, Best Small Business, Best Large Business, Construction Project of the Year. There's 14 different categories. It's a big event, but it couldn't take place. So we're like, Andrew, we really want to do this, and we're not quite sure how we can run it online, and should we just record something and put it out? And Andrew was like, no. We're not going to just record something. And I'll let you fill in the details, but for my long story short, we ended up running an event that was the equivalent to how they ran the Oscars from LA that year.
It was no pressure then.
It was incredible. And I'll set the scene, but I distinctly remember you set the setup, the rehearsals before we even started was about 2 weeks worth of work upstairs in the boardroom, and you testing stuff over. You tell me the story.
Yeah, I mean, when you came towards me and said, "Oh, I want to do this," it's like, oh, gee whiz, how are we going to do this? And I said, let's do it live. why? I'm not sure, but yeah, it's one of those things. It was COVID.
I think you said if it was worth doing properly, we should do it properly.
It's such a good event to be part of, and to do it pre-recorded, I just didn't think it would have given it justice. So I thought, let's do it live. Let's see what's going to happen. And it was a lot of planning to start with. Taking 14 finalists into the live mix was a challenge. We had to take them in. We used Zoom as a platform for that, and we broadcast out on Zoom webinar. So it was a bit of two platforms in one. Lots of planning, lots of rehearsals with people on
so many
Zoom
rehearsals
to start with, because it was just at the start of people understand how Zoom worked and things like that, and it was a challenge. It really was.
How many laptops did you have?
Far too many.
Oh yeah, I think at last count I thought about 12.
Yeah, there was
and that was just in here.
There's a few laptops sitting there to make it work, to be honest. A lot of screen scraping, bit of a technical term there, but just to get things working and get the broadcast. But we also obviously had a very small team in the studio at the time as well to keep in with the restrictions.
We were meant to have two hosts in the studio, but one of them actually got COVID. So somebody hosted from home, one person hosted from the studio.
So, it was good. I mean, we put a star cloth up in the back of the studio just to give it a bit of pizzazz.
Yeah.
Like Chris in the studio.
Yeah, Chris Harvey from STV.
Pauline was at home with COVID. So we had to sort of, take her in remotely and give her a chat with Chris. And then, it was just... it was crazy.
Well,
it really was crazy.
Yeah, and what I think was the level of tech, it was a very tech heavy event. There was so much in it, but it also made it the most human event we've ever had because of that.
Yeah.
There was I think there were still the same 40 finalists, but they were all calling from their own home.
Yeah.
And we were going in for every award category. We were still calling the names of 4 or 5 finalists per category and having all of them on screen together, talking with the host here in the studio before we then went live to one of their living rooms.
Yeah, the hardest thing for me is not working. I had a team, but it was a very small team here.
Yeah.
We were normally
Two of your team were me and Sarah, sorry.
So, where I'd be used to having a few techs holding my hand, so to speak, just working together, I was having to pull the whole thing together by myself, along with obviously yourself and Sarah, which was fantastic. And to be honest, looking back at it, we've done a fantastic job.
Sarah Young was incredible at that. I've got no idea how she did what she did.
No, this is it. But again, it's a team effort. But, working with that restrictions, we had to make it work as well. It was just a phenomenal exercise to do. And really, I was proud to be part of it, to be honest. As I say, to take all that people together. 400 people watching it.
Remember The Apprentice just in his living room with his grandma?
You can't miss that. I mean, we were just getting to see in people's houses, and it was just a reaction. It was the real raw emotions that you were getting. It's something you don't get in the, sometimes when you go into the likes of the Ardo, where it's held normally, you're not getting to see the mums and dads being excited for their kids.
They can't be there.
They can't be there. So to see that part, and even some of the disappointment, but it was just a really, really good experience to be part of. It was one of those events, it had to happen live. It didn't deserve justice to have it pre-recorded. It had to be live.
And it sounds like you made a lot of people very happy during COVID with that event. So a real special thing to be involved in.
Absolutely, yeah.
So there we have it, the Trades Awards. Thank you so much for bringing that into, sorry, I'm going to do it again, Case Study Corner. So there we have it. It's almost time to wrap up on this episode of M&G Agency Life. But before we do that, Aimee, there's been a lot that we've covered.
So much.
Have you got some takeaways?
I do. So stream TV can reduce your carbon footprint. So it's a great way for companies to reach a big audience just from the M&G office. Always look out for snakes when on a shoot.
Yes.
You've experienced that yourself. Don't want to get involved with them. Good quality film makes a huge difference and it can really benefit companies. Podcasting, again, a great way to get your message across. We've spoken about podcasts endlessly, but it's such a good way to get your message across to a big audience. Having a strong call to action is essential for videos, especially if it's business to business. Media training, we've spoken about that in depth, which is really interesting. Try to stick to your core messages. Don't be scared to take a pause and really think about your answers and not rush into anything. And media training, again, is more than just talking, reporters on TVs. It's about talking at conferences and really getting your message across from different companies. And last but not least is having reliable suppliers is essential, especially for the team at Mearns & Gill. We rely on these two so much for delivering lots of different things around Mearns & Gill, so it's really essential to have reliable suppliers you can come with lots of problems, and you solve them for us. That's always good.
We have covered a lot in the Media Solutions episode. As always, if you'd like to know more about anything we've spoken about on this episode, you can drop us a line.
Yep. You can find us on Instagram at Mearns Gill. You can also find Mearns Gill on Facebook, LinkedIn, or online.
And you can also text the podcast directly from your podcast platform. Just like to say a massive thank you to Andrew, to Roy, to Isla. Thanks for being on the podcast.
Thank you.
Next week will be the final episode of this season, and we're going to go out with a bang. We need your questions, so we're going to do a bit of a Q&A. It's the Mearns & Gill Q&A grand finale, but that's next time. See you next week.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Can I also just say that I haven't given up hope of being a lead guitarist in a rock and roll band?
Maybe that's in season 2, Roy.